we know that the teaching of Jesus stopped, at chapter 17. And like I said, the first part of John is about to the people. Then you get a couple of chapters to the Pharisees and to the leaders of the Jews, and then to the disciples, and then to us who are the future disciples, believers in Christ. And then we had 18, where we got into the arrest, the betrayal by Judas. Jesus is led away to the authorities. He's taken from one kangaroo court to another. We're given this with Pontius Pilate, and I wonder if John was able to kind of follow along and, see what was going on and hear what was said. I mean, if the Pharisees could go in and hear and respond and say, we don't want anything to do with him, crucify him, crucify him. Maybe John, because John, again, was a friend of the high priest. He was known and accepted. We even get the idea to where in that inner court, where Peter would deny him, John went in, and then he came back and allowed Peter to come in, because he had access, and he had to go back and get Peter, so Peter would have access. But Peter was now at the outside court, and he denied Christ 3 times. So you get the idea that all this stuff that happens, John's kind of in the background watching this go on and documents it. And he's documenting also the things, and he may have also had some of these stories given to him by Mary and Mary Magdalene. I'm going to go ahead and say that what we're looking at here is firsthand eyewitness of a behind the scenes. See, this is something that the others may not have had firsthand, is a behind the scenes look. And so that's what we're looking at here. So we had him taken away before Pilate. Pilate even asked, what is truth? Christ reveals himself, and then he asks those questions of, well, are you saying that I'm the Christ, or did someone else? Are you speaking through someone else? Are you applying faith? Because that's what he's doing there. You said, I am a king. At this end I was born, and for this cause I came into the world. So he said he was a king. This is where we get this king of the Jews. Up until now, he had never been called the king of the Jews by anyone. But now Pilate makes it king of the Jews. We even find out that he puts it on the cross, which makes the on the writing on the cross. They would put writings up there so people would know who the person was and what their crime was. Like so-and-so was guilty of murder, or so-and-so was guilty of thievery. Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus of Nazareth. What was his crime? Being the king of the Jews. I mean, it really is a slap to the Jews. But we see Pontius Pilate is trying to get Jesus off. But the Jews are saying, we want Barabbas. Because he even tries to find a legal loophole to say, hey, I can release one person to you. Yeah, give us Barabbas. Give us the murderer. Release to us the murderer and take this man off to be crucified. And Pilate took him and had him scourged and thought that would be enough. They put a crown of thorn on him. They took off his robe, they put him on this purple robe, and they mocked him, and they brought him out, and he goes, behold your king. Again, a mockery to the Jews of how, here's your king. I've put a crown on him for you. I've put a purple robe on him for you. He's mocking the Jews with that. He came forth wearing it, behold a man. And the high priest said, crucify him, crucify him, take him and crucify him. We have a law, and by our law, he ought to die because he made himself the Son of God. Once again, that's stated several times. Jesus said he was the Son of God. All of his enemies said so. That was the reason why they wanted him dead. Jesus never said he was the Son of God. Yes, he did, actually. He even said up there, I said I am the Son of God. And they took his word, and now they're using it against him. And Pilate was more afraid of him. And he went to talk with Jesus, but Jesus wouldn't defend himself. Jesus wouldn't answer. He goes, don't you know I have the power to crucify you or release you? And Jesus says, no, you don't. You couldn't have no power against me except it was given to thee from above. He that delivered you to me, he has the greater sin. He's talking about Judas there. The betrayer is the one that has the greater sin. And henceforth, Pilate sought to release him, but the Jews kept crying out, if you let this man go, you are not a friend of Caesar. Wow, they're really pulling it out. You are not a friend of Caesar. You're a betrayer of Caesar by letting him go. So Pilate brought him forth down to the judgment seat, and which is near the pavement. And it was about the 6th hour. So they'd been up all night dealing with this. And behold your king. And they cried out, away with him, crucify him, crucify him. We have no king but Caesar. There is a poignant moment. They should have said, Jehovah is our king. Yahweh is our king. The one from Sinai, the I am, he is our king. No, we have no king. That's a betrayal of Jehovah right there. A complete betrayal. But they're saying we have no king but Caesar. What a slam in the face. Then we have him bearing his cross. And he goes up the hill. And Pilate writes on there, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. And they get mad about it. And he goes, what I've written, I've written. You know, he's really getting frosty with these guys. The soldiers went and took his garment and made 4 parts. But he had this one overcloak that he had, which was one seamless robe. And they cast lots for it to fulfill the scriptures that said that they cast lots for his clothing. And there stood by the cross Jesus, his mother, and his mother's sister Mary, the wife of Cleopas, and Mary Magdalene. And Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing there. That's John. So John was firsthand. John was eyewitness. John was eyewitness, following them around through all of these courts, hearing what Pilate had to say, kind of following and listening. And then and then coming back and now witnessing the cross. He was the one disciple who was there witnessing the cross. And Jesus looked down at his physical mother, his mother, and said, behold your son, pointing to John. And then he pointed to John and said, behold your mother. And John took care of Mary for the rest of her life. And Jesus had everything accomplished. He said, I thirst. He drank some vinegar that they put up in a sponge. Then he cried out, it is finished, bowed his head, and he gave up the ghost. He didn't just die. He gave it up. I'm done. It's over. And the Jews, because it was time of preparation, they didn't want any bodies on the cross because we were coming up to a high day. Now, this was just not, again, a traditional seventh-day Sabbath. This was, we were coming up upon Passover. After Passover would come unleavened bread. And I'm believing, because Jesus said 3 days and 3 nights, and I did another video on this, plus it was also mentioned in my video on the last chapter of Mark, that he died on a Wednesday. And I have a video on why not a Wednesday crucifixion, why not? It gives the evidences in here for a Wednesday crucifixion. And it makes sense that the next day, if it's Passover, that's a high day. It's what we would call a holiday. You know, like Flag Day or something. It's a holiday. We're going to stop everything. It's going to be a high day tomorrow. And then comes unleavened bread. Then they had Friday was just a regular day. But that's a part of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Then you have Sabbath. Then you have Mary Magdalene coming early on Sunday morning. And I worked that out on a chart, which I have in the other video, where you can have Jesus coming. He's in the grave 3 days, 3 nights. And then he's noticed to be gone early in the morning. I'm believing that he probably got resurrected earlier that evening. So he wouldn't be a full other night. Because he was there, you'd have him there Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday. And so Saturday would have stopped at 6 p.m. on the Sabbath. And he wasn't in the grave a full next night. So he may have, for all we know, got resurrected at midnight or earlier or something. And he was known to go off by himself. And we had the story in the other Gospels about the earthquake that came along and all this stuff that happened about moving the stone up the hill and all of this. Could easily have happened in the evening or early in the morning. So you don't have a full day, so it doesn't count. He only says 3 days and 3 nights, not 3 days, and that would have been 4 nights, but that didn't happen. So that's my belief on it. I have scriptures that back that up if you want to see that video. But here we have him. It's finished, and they got to take him off because it's a high day. Once again, a high day. John is telling us some information, not just a Sabbath. And why we call Jesus a liar? People will say, well, the Jews only counted. No, it's not the Jews that you're calling a liar. It's Jesus of Nazareth you're calling a liar. Several times he said 3 days, 3 days, 3 days and 3 nights. And we're the ones, as Christians, who are calling him a liar because it's going to upset our church apple cart if we say, guess what, we've been wrong. That's not going to happen. So they have them there. And they told the soldiers to go break the legs. So they broke the legs of the men around him. When they got to him, they didn't break his legs. They could tell he was dead. And I get a lot of non-Christians going, well, there was the swoon theory. He was just swooning. He's pretending to be dead. Okay, you go hang on a cross, bleed for hours at a time with blood going through your arms and through your feet and through parts on your forehead, and just have all that blood going out, and then you just pretend to swoon. Then go lay in a dark tomb where they wrap you up like a mummy with 100 pounds of spices and leave you there. And you escape from the inside with a big rock in front of you and with guards who are up front who are staying up all night to make sure nobody dinks with you. People will do anything not to believe in Jesus. They'll just do anything. So here we got the soldiers put a pierce to his side, and there came out blood and water. This is something John would have seen. It is a testament to being dead. If they stab you in the heart, usually you're dead. But if water and blood come out, that's evidence of death. That this was fulfilled, and not a bone would be broken. And that also, though they looked upon who they pierced. Yeah, they looked upon who they pierced. They're going to see the piercings here, but also a piercing here. And when Jesus comes back and reveals himself to the Jews and the second coming, he's going to reveal those, just like he did. We're going to see that later on with Thomas. Joseph of Arimathea comes and asks for the body from Pilate. Nicodemus also is there, and he brings the mixture of myrrh and aloe and of about 100 pounds. So that's a lot to carry, 100 pounds of this stuff. And they lay it out. They're going to lay the body out. They don't want him. It's a respect thing. He's dead. And so it's almost like an exterior embalming. It's preparing for when the decay happens. You get the idea that they were maybe going to come back and visit him in a few days or something or whatever. Visit the tomb, and therefore it didn't, stink as much. But they're going to do this. And they wrap him up like a mummy. They wrap up his face. And they leave him. And they carried him into the garden, put him in a new tomb. And it was the day of the preparations. And the sepulcher was nigh at hand. So they carried him over there. They put him into the tomb. And now he's dead. So that's the ending of chapter 19. I'm going to finish tomorrow with chapters 20 and 21 and finish off the book of John. But we need to see that John ran with this. He was the eyewitness. We're getting some inside skinny that nobody else saw. Yeah, he would have told them. And he was 90 when he wrote this. So he's been telling people for over half a century. Now he's writing it down. So we've got the inside scoop. Like I said, Matthew is the Jewish Jesus. Mark is the shooting script to Jesus, the high points. Luke is the investigative reporter who goes in and has talked with all these people, all these eyewitnesses. Then John is behind the scenes. And we even get the heart of Jesus too. This has a lot to it that we don't see because we read it too small, we read it too slowly, 5 verses at a time, and we let someone else tell us what it says. Do the grid work, find out what it says for yourself because he's worth it.